Let's say Saturn right now is in Leo. All right. Let's say you have Saturn in Leo, and let's say your first house is Leo. That's the house of the body. So what that means is, and Saturn's not a friend to Leo because Leo is ruled by the Sun, and Saturn and the Sun, they don't get along too well most of the time. So when Saturn moves into that point, what that means is there's going to be some issues with the body. There could be health issues, there could be face issues, skin issues, a suppression of the personality. Saturn causes things to be restricted, obstructed, focused. Okay, he's the teacher of reality, which means he's really going to bring reality home to you. Okay, it's going to get over your illusions and your delusions. So let's say this comes into effect, and all of a sudden you just get terribly depressed, because that's one thing that Saturn does. He'll depress you. And Saturn stays within a sign for 2.5 years. So that's 2.5 years of some pretty hardcore grief. Now, you can go with it, you can accept it, you can let it work through you, you can let it work itself out, or you can find yourself a 7 mukhi, that's what the fast means, a 7 mukhi bead for Saturn. And the way this bead works is it essentially absorbs those negative rays of Saturn, and it brings in the positive effects of Saturn, which create detachment, which creates discipline, which creates the ability to focus on what's important in your life. Okay. So that's one way a yogic healing remedy can work. If you need to balance out Saturn, one stone you would use would be a blue sapphire. Okay. And a blue sapphire, in the Vedic system, it needs to be unheated, untreated, and of at least 2 carats, and fairly flawless. Okay. And that's hard to find, and that's extremely expensive. However, there is a one-time investment, and a lot of times the stones that you need, they will work for you for your entire life. The other way is mantra. Do many of you use mantra in your meditation practice? Okay. Yes. Well, mantras, there are specific mantras to the planets, and most of them, since we're talking about Saturday, that works out. For Saturn, it's Om, Sham, Shanaye, Namaha. And all the mantras are like this. Om, we always start out with Om. And then Sham is the seed syllable for the planet. So it represents its very essence. Okay? Shanaye, Shani is the name for Saturn. Shanaye and Namaha. Namaha means I acknowledge with reverence. So the mantras that you're using essentially mean I acknowledge with reverence the planet Saturn. And that helps balance out those energies within your life. And for yogis, so people who meditate and do yoga, that is the most recommended way to balance out these planetary energies. Because they say that stones can bring a more materialistic quality to the person. And being yogis, you're trying to get over that. So mantra is the way to go. And secondarily, or beyond that, what I highly recommend, the most important yogic remedy that you have for, I don't want to say defeating your planets, but again, we'll go with the yoga known as outwitting the stars, is your own behavior modification. By practicing meditation, by reading the yogic scriptures such as the planetary yoga sutras, can you hand that back to me? You find the ways to overcome these inner tendencies that you have. Meditation itself, when you're meditating, oftentimes when people sit to meditate, they're distracted by thoughts, emotions, past experiences, restlessness, whatever it might be. And yoga helps you overcome that. Okay? And there are different levels to yoga practice. If you open up your book here, 3 pages in, where you see 229, this lists the 8 limbs of yoga, which are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By practicing these 8 limbs, you essentially release your attachment to the stars. You release your attachment to the planets. Okay, so basically, the yamas and the niyamas are refraining from harmful behaviors and cultivating positive behaviors. The harmful behaviors to refrain from include violence, lying, stealing, wasting vital resources, and possessiveness. Now, those are pretty straightforward. One of them, brahmacharya, which translates roughly to wasting vital resources. A lot of times that's considered to be like celibacy. On a more broad level, what that means is you don't waste your time. You don't waste your energy in things which are no longer useful for you. You don't hang around people which aren't useful for you. You bring things together so that everything you do becomes dedicated to the practice of yoga. Violence, lying, stealing, wasting vital resources, and possessiveness. When you have these within your consciousness, these are going to be reflected in your birth chart. These are going to be reflected within your planetary makeup. For example, if you have a strong malefic means it can't be translated evil, but it just means violent, nasty, Mars in your chart. That could predispose you to violence, whether it be verbal, physical. It could predispose you to being that way towards others, towards yourself. It can also predispose you to experiencing it from other people. Okay. Now, the way you outwit Mars within your chart is you take into consideration that innate violence that you have toward yourself or towards other people. And it doesn't mean that you go out and hit people. It could be something like you just think negative thoughts about other people. That's a type of violence. Okay. In yoga, oftentimes it's recommended is vegetarianism to prevent violence towards animals. Okay. And the more you do these things, the less influence that planet, say Mars, would have on you. You would not be suffering from that violence, either towards other people or those people towards you. A good example, before I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, when I looked at my birth chart, I thought to myself, boy, this is a pretty nasty setup we have here. Okay. And when I think about my life before I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, it was. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because all the planets within your chart have a higher and lower effect on you. If you're experiencing the lower effects, such as violence or stealing or wasting your resources or being possessive, you don't need an astrologer to tell you that you have those. Okay, and really, you usually don't need an astrologer to tell you much of this stuff, but it's nice to have it confirmed. If you have these within you, all you do is you decide to change that aspect, the way you think, the way you react to the world. Okay? And by doing that, you're taking control of your karma. You're taking control of this force, which typically just pushed you around and caused unpleasant things to occur. And you're saying to the universe, I'm ready to wake up. I'm ready to be responsible. I'm ready to know who I am at the innermost core of my being. I'm ready to no longer blame the outside world for what's happening. So you see, these yamas and these niyamas, these are essential to overcoming your karmic influences. Right? And they're also good for yoga practice. That's why it's in the Yoga Sutras. Now, the opposite qualities are peace, truth, prosperity consciousness, and serving our vital resources and non-attachment. Now, of these, the one that is most helpful is truth. Truth, if you speak the truth, if you tell the truth to the best of your ability, if you avoid lying of any kind, what you're doing is you're creating a circuit within you so that the truth can come through you. All right? And this is why when all these sages and all these saints, when it's said that whenever a saint says something that has to happen, it's because they don't lie. So if you have, let's say, 60 years of someone who's always telling the truth, never lying, then let's say that the time comes around and someone wants a blessing, they want to get better, and the saint says, okay, you'll be fine. The universe, knowing that framework, that circuit of truth is there, will say, hey, this guy said it, it must be true. And it will change things. It will create that path so that it will actually occur. And the same thing in your life. The more you commit to telling the truth, the more you commit to living your own truth, and that if you think about that, that also goes to, the more you develop, have you ever noticed that sometimes people that you like hanging around, you're not so interested in hanging around them anymore, like you outgrow them? If you insist on hanging around the people you outgrow, you're not being truthful to yourself. And if you say, okay, I understand, I don't fit in here anymore, so I have to go somewhere else, but you're afraid because you think you're going to be lonely, okay? Get over that, because you will resonate with people who are where you are, and then they will come into your life. But you have to make the space first. And the same thing with truth. The whole point of yoga, the whole point of Vedic astrology, Ayurveda, the whole point of all of these sciences is to know the truth of who you are beyond name and form.